Yes.
We are live.
Hey guys. Hey guys. Hey everybody. This is the Baptist
And the Buddhist
live.
right now.
I was gonna say in person, but it's only us two
It
that
kind
are
of is in
kind
person, though.
Yeah.
It's like we are in person for the first time ever in Baptist and Buddhist history.
This is the first time we ever met in person. Just kidding. We're streaming from like 3 different platforms right now. So if we're looking awkwardly away from you guys, it's not because we don't love you. It's because we are trying to keep track of every single point of contact, and we appreciate you guys viewing. If you're not viewing, and if you're just viewing it later, thank you for listening again. I'm gonna actually do this real quick. Boom, because I almost forgot. Oh, wrong thing. Okay, so the Baptist and the Buddhist live in person. Mark, Brian.
It's been a while. It's been a while since we've done an actual episode.
Yep.
I think we celebrated our 1 year, and then life started getting very, very busy.
Very busy, and really, like, we're just taking a hiatus at this moment, but we wanted to make sure when we had an opportunity to be together, you guys had an opportunity to be with us.
Yeah.
So
we are here.
We haven't stopped making episodes like forever or anything. I know our audio listeners, you got a bonus track when we were on the Come Pray With Me podcast. I never posted that audio until like maybe a month ago. So
that was a nice treat for the audio listeners. It was a really cool episode.
Yeah.
And we have some fun stuff for the Baptist and Buddhist content in the near future. Kind of stuff we haven't really done before, so it'll be kind of fun.
Exactly.
So stay tuned, all of you.
Stay tuned.
Yeah, but we are here today for an in-person talk.
Kind of impromptu.
Yeah.
We don't have, usually we don't have a script anyways. We don't say, hey, we're going to talk about this and then this and then this. We're just like, hey, what do you want to talk about? This. Oh, okay, cool. Let's record. So that's what it's like right now, but with you guys watching.
Yeah, and we just kind of came up with a very vague general topic and said, let's do an episode. Maybe we will have questions from the viewers that we can tackle.
Yeah. Exactly. If you guys are watching this and want to know something, anything really, it doesn't have to deal with the topic, but just anything while we're together, like, guys, answer this now, live. Or if you're not live and you're listening and watching and you say, man, I really have this burning question, or I'm just really curious about something, or I just want to say hi, you can always reach us at many of our contact points, which includes, but not limited to, email, baptistandbuddhist@gmail.com. You can find us on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, TikTok. You can find us on all podcast apps. And we have many ways to contact us. It's just up to you to contact us. And we always enjoy hearing from you guys. We get to hear from many people around the country and even the world. We've been on global stage, and it's always a fun, exciting time. So,
and for anyone who, if you're tuning in, you forgot who we were.
Who in the world are we? Like, why are there two guys talking? It's like that look kind of the same, but not really.
Yeah. And maybe you're not familiar with us and you just kind of stumbled onto this. Who are we? The Baptists and the Buddhists? That's interesting, weird,
heretical.
How does this work?
Yeah.
Well, we are identical twin brothers who just happen to have extraordinarily, drastically different faiths.
Yeah.
I almost said disturbingly.
In some ways, yes, it's disturbing.
To some people, it's
So
like, it is disturbing. It's like,
To some people,
what?
it is, especially even some of our closer friends. It's like, why are you guys the way you are?
It could be a case study. So we have a Baptist and we have a Buddhist, and we on this podcast we like to discuss our differences, how we approach different topics, different subjects, our life. Um, it's it's I think it's a great opportunity to show the world that despite differences, we can come together and we can discuss things that might be deemed in the public sphere as no-goes. We don't talk about religion, especially with family.
Yeah, and we're trying to break that barrier of like the uncomfortable dinners where like no one wants to talk about anything because they're afraid people will be offended. And just opening up that dialogue between the two of us, especially since a lot of times we haven't really talked about much of our faiths, of our beliefs together. And so we're kind of giving you guys a fly on the wall experience with seeing how those conversations go. So it's kind of a unique opportunity, not for us, but for the viewers and listeners to actually be able to see that as well.
Yeah, it's a lot of what we talk about we haven't discussed with each other, like he said, and so you get to kind of experience how two identical twin brothers might tackle these topics.
Exactly.
Because I believe, I don't know about him, but I believe that we should be able to approach these topics without getting heated and wanting to punch the other in the face.
Yeah, or like making the other person not necessarily uncomfortable, but like find distaste with your position. Like, wow, what a jerk. Like, I don't want to ever talk to them again. Like, that's just not productive in any kind of relationship or any kind of interpersonal communication. It's just not conducive to anything.
Yeah, it tends to, when talking from different religious perspectives, we tend to uh, kind of kill the conversation before it could even start. One group might say something that just completely shuts down the opportunity for the other group to say anything and feel like they have the space to say anything.
Yeah, we've seen uh, plenty of confrontations that all of a sudden the other party feels intimidated or like they have no room to even be there or um, to ask questions or have any kind of conversation. And then it's like, okay, I'm out.
Yeah, it the goal is to create that kind of atmosphere where both sides feel like, okay, I can share things that I might not necessarily share with others in similar contexts. Yeah, and
We don't have to destroy each other or start bashing each other with misconceptions that are even bringing it to fisticuffs.
yeah, we're not here to prove ourselves right or prove them wrong. That's just that in the history of the world, I don't think that's ever actually been a very fruitful territory.
Nope, never.
So we're here to discuss in a manner of dialogue and respect our, particular different approaches.
Yep, exactly. So we've been spending the whole week together. Usually we don't get this opportunity because we live far away from each other. This week it's different because it's vacation for both of us, and we're just gonna do a twin week, and we've talked a lot about some stuff, and We've done some really cool stuff for the podcast itself. So stay tuned because there's some awesome stuff coming your way. You guys will either love it or like unsubscribe that very minute.
Yeah.
Which I don't blame you because we're weird. But we've also been talking a lot and like, feeling up the next couple episodes, maybe the next season or whatever it's going to be. And today we were just kind of wanting to share what a daily practice looks like, day in the life of.
Yeah.
So you're going to follow me from when I go to bed and until I wake up and until I go to bed again. Real time, 24/7 hours.
Let's go.
Nope.
Yeah. Well, I think it's like, both traditions probably have, daily practices that, but also our day-to-day life is kind of informed by our spiritual practice or spiritual faith or what have you. And so we'll kind of touch on how our faiths influence our daily lives, our routines, our reactions, etc.
Yeah, exactly. And sometimes there are things that we do in our daily lives that are influenced by our not only our like religious beliefs but culture, and we just take it for granted. And Brian probably is confused by some things I do.
He's probably confused by a lot of things I do.
I am just afraid to ask. No, I'm kidding. Well, this is our time to ask. So daily, where do we even begin in saying like, what's a day in the life of a Baptist look like?
Well, let's start when we wake up in the morning. Our alarm clock goes off. Then what?
Yeah, I remember one of my early pastors used to say like every morning we should be thankful that we're not waking up inside a chalk outline. I'm like, well, first off, we wouldn't be waking up. Because if I was waking up inside of a chalk outline, I would be thankful that I'm waking up. But thankfulness is a big part of like a daily life. It's a big part of daily life that you should have or strive for, maybe. That a Baptist or just a Christian in general should have. Now, there are a lot of people that probably don't take that as close and dear to heart as they should, because Scripture tells us to be thankful and to be basically. They always say like you should be in an attitude of thanks living all the time. Like, because they say. Some people say like when you ask how are you, it's like, well, I'm doing better than I deserve. And beyond that, it's just every day has blessings that we should be and really day starts or any really given moment. Ideally, I like to be living, and I think Scripture would back this up with really not taking life too seriously, because and that moment's not gonna that moment that you're in that might be stressful, or maybe it's just a bad day or something. It's not gonna be like that forever, and we have hope, like eternal hope, looking forward to. And sometimes I find it hard to take things too seriously, and maybe that's a fault to a degree. Um, but it's kind of just looking at the big picture. Look at the big picture, and like everything's going to work out one way or another. Some things are going to be harder than the others, but you'll still get through it. Moment by moment, you'll get through it. So waking up, I always try to have that attitude. Try, it's a key word, but thankfully it's not all dependent on me. And that's when you say waking up, that's what I think of. Waking up.
Yeah, I was like right there with you with all of that until that last part. Because it really is very similar for Buddhists, and I hear a lot of different teachers uh, and the Buddhist masters and stuff talk about uh, waking up, and some of them say the first thing, the very first thing you should do while conscious, still laying there, even before you open your eyes, is cultivate metta or loving kindness. So you're really trying to almost instinctually radiate this friendliness towards all beings in every direction, um, which is really can help set the mood for the day going forward. Waking up, instead of waking up on the wrong side of the bed, you can get up and intentionally kind of cultivate that that feeling of what's sometimes called loving friendliness or loving kindness, metta, to all beings. Um, that could definitely be a struggle, especially if you're just, whoa, I can't even wake up in the morning. Alarm clock just interrupted my beautiful sleep. Um, uh, and I was up there until you said it's not dependent on us, because in Buddhism it is dependent on us. And I was just listening uh, to a talk of some verses on the Dhammapada where it says, um, only we can only depend on ourselves for, well, first of all, we ourselves kind of, in Buddhist terms, defile our minds, where we plant seeds of intention of greed and hate, but we ourselves also can plant seeds of compassion and loving kindness and renunciation, and so uh, what can we do to cultivate peace and non-harming to ourselves and others? And that's kind of what the waking up with that intention of love and kindness does. uh, no one can purify another person's intentions. We can only do that ourselves. um, and you know so there's the theory about behind that, and then there's the actual practice of what that looks like. Do I wake up every day and immediately jump to spread metta, spread loving kindness? No. But there's also a very strong and prevalent tradition in many Buddhist traditions of pausing and giving yourself a moment to be mindful. And that could be a really powerful thing in the morning. You get up and your mind is already racing, like, oh, I don't want to get up, oh, I have to go do this, oh, I need water, oh man. And it's just like a camera, like a film camera just boots up and reels start spinning. And it can be helpful to just sit there and okay, focus on my breath. What does my body feel like what's going on in my body and my mind? And shortly after waking up, I always like to give myself like 15-20 minutes of formal meditation, formal sitting, uh, to kind of do what I said at the beginning, which is set your intention for the day. Help be more mindful of what's going on. And as we talk about this topic, you'll see that idea of dropping in some a pause and some awareness throughout the day is a continuing theme throughout the day.
Yeah, that's interesting. And that kind of reminded me of some things too that um, with with waking up and like how to set your mind, like where to set your mind at, like what's the starting point, and with that comment, it's not up to us, like it's not up to me to a point to a point it is because the scripture says to let us have the mind like uh, let us have the mind of Christ. I'm paraphrasing, but in that phrase, there's a point of intentionally having the mind of Christ, and it's not just like an automatic thing. And the Bible talks about having uh, having the Spirit in us, and like God gives us peace. But there's still a point where we have to get that make that what our day is going to be, what our life is going to be. It just doesn't happen automatically. So we have to have that's like I think it goes um, I just lost it again. It was right there, but it's let us on. It's like let us have the mind of Christ or something. I'll have to look it up again for word, but um, and having a prayerful attitude as well. The Bible talks about prayer without ceasing. That's what Paul tells us to do. Um, we've talked to we've talked previously about that. And it's not like it's not a constant word by word dialogue, but it could be like a state of mind. So, but it could be dialogue as well in your heart to God. So when you do wake up, maybe make it a habit to say a quick prayer and spend a season in prayer during that time. And then it helps you prepare yourself for the day in that attitude. And it gets the day off at that point, making up your mind at that point and say, I'm going to make it a great day. Whether or not something bad or good happens, I'm not going to let it sway my viewpoint of the day. Um, because there's that temporary timeline that you get your mind stuck in, like, oh no, this is so terrible, everything's wrong. But you have to look past that and say, okay, not everything is going to be wrong all the time. So it depends on it depends on you, but it doesn't necessarily entirely depend on you, because you need to get the mind of Christ, and that mind of Christ and having that the right spirit will get you to that point of like, am I ready for the day with the right attitude and with the right settings on? And there's something else I was going to say about that, but I lost my train of thought. But yeah, having that prayerful attitude and thankful attitude is big.
Yeah, the thankful part reminds me, like kind of gratitude practice of of reflecting on what's the kind of the good stuff, the beneficial things. And and I like what you say. It's like, oh, this isn't forever, and it's like right there with impermanence, the kind of a mindfulness of impermanence, where we can recognize like, oh wow, this this the line that I'm standing in at the grocery store, it's horrible, and you can like let that sour your mood for the rest of the day, or you can say, oh yeah, this is like obviously not gonna last forever. And uh that kind of bringing your awareness back to the present moment, to your breath or whatever. You could even uh you know just take a moment to kind of be aware of your maybe your posture, or maybe there's a particular sensation in your body, oh, my shoulder blades are just really tight or something, like, and
How did you know?
and that can, like, one, like, it brings you back into the present moment, but two, it also like takes your awareness out of your thoughts that are just all over, just continuously uh arising in your mind, and you can kind of take a step out of those thoughts for a moment and say, and kind of give your awareness a break. And but the part of the being thankful thing, the Buddha often would uh, give lists. There's a lot of lists in Buddhism, but there's one that is particularly helpful, and I believe he gave this with the instructions of reflecting on these daily, um, maybe even like the moment you wake up. But uh, they're usually called the five reflections, and it's things that help refocus you on what is important. So it's things like, I am subject to aging. There's no escape from aging. Number two, it's like, I am subject to sickness. I will get sick. There's no escaping that. Uh, I'm subject to death. There's no escape from death. Uh, I'm subject to change and separation from things that I hold dear. There's no escaping that. And also, um, you know, the last one really kind of, I think, brings all of this into perspective and says, I I am responsible for my actions. I am subject to the consequences of my actions. Like, I am heir to my actions. Basically, I will reap everything that I sow. So make this a good day, I mean, it doesn't say that, but it ending with that, I think it's, you kind of can look back on the first four and say, okay, yeah, I get it. I get what really matters today and in the long term.
Yeah, from a Christian's perspective, it's it basically is that because we're Scripture tells us that like everything we do uh, as a Christian will we will either reap rewards for that or just suffer loss at at our at the judgment seat of Christ. And it's not necessarily that we're losing salvation or anything, but we're losing out on the rewards and the blessings that we could have in eternity. So like every little thing counts, and it's a good reminder. Like okay, I'm living for Christ, and I mean the Bible says like whether you live or die, you are the Lord's. Where in everything, do it unto the Lord. And so like okay, is me getting angry that my waiter's not coming fast enough, like, and like showing a bad attitude about that, is that really going to reap any benefits from this in my life, or like is my attitude going to reflect a good spirit? I mean, obviously no one really enjoys a rude customer, so you got to take that into consideration. And again, it's like attitude, the right spirit. I remember our middle school principal always said, like, make it a great day or not. The choice is yours. Like, you get to choose how it is, and not just for yourself, but everyone else around you.
yeah.
And as Christians, we're supposed to be ambassadors for Christ on the earth. So we don't want to mess that up and like uh, and just appear as a unthankful person, and like seeing how that like, oh wow, Christians, or like even just like the body of Christ has that kind of attitude that doesn't come off well to other people, and it ruins their day too.
Yeah, that's really interesting because like in the suttas, you'll actually see stories of the Buddha's like main sangha of monastics, and lay people will come up and say, "Oh wow, I saw them do this and this," and the Buddha's like, "Hey, monks, we should be, you know, we should be acting more like this. We should be acting more. We should maybe avoid harsh speech, even if it's just expressly for not giving off the wrong idea to people who don't know who we are." And it's kind of, I think almost universally people can just also kind of take that idea of, if I'm rude to my waiter or whatever, like, is that even going to fix anything?
Yeah, it's true. It's not going to be beneficial to anything.
Yeah, uh, and the Buddha, kind of along with the five reflections, also offered what he usually referred to as like I can't remember the phrasing, but like the best, the strongest mindfulness practice is the mindfulness of death, of your own mortality. And that kind of just like, puts in perspective what's worth living for, kind of.
Mm.
Like, should I just, you know is it worth getting up and being angry for the day? Or because like you're not going to go to bed satisfied from that. um
Yeah, yeah. Paul talks about like um, the things that are seen are temporal, but things that are not seen are eternal. And like we need to, like, even though we're submersed in this seen world and like in the temporal, like it's not going to last. Like, so don't let it affect you that much. Um, don't let it grind your gears that much, because it's temporal. It's temporary. The Bible explains life as like a fleeting vapor. It's not going to last that long anyway. So sometimes you just got to deal with it and let it pass.
yeah, I think I want to say someone from the Thai forest tradition, maybe Ajahn Chah. It might not have been him though. Once said, "Don't take your life so personally."
Oh man. Well, going back to a day in the life of, obviously, like in the real world, like real life situation here, we go to work every day. Like, why in the world are we spending our time doing this stuff that we usually don't want to do? I happen to like my job. I like what I do. So and it makes it that much easier. But like sometimes you just wish, I don't want to have to work like this every day. And that's why I have vacation this week. But like, why do we do the things we do? Is it because of like social normality? Is it out of necessity? I know for a Christian, like, uh, you know, in the Gospels, it's like, hey, sell everything you have and just follow Jesus. Like, if someone asks for your shirt, give it to them. And a lot of people will say, like, well, why don't you Christians do that? When it comes to who Jesus was talking to back then, he was talking to the nation of Israel that was following him, and he was preparing them for the tribulation period. But so I'm gonna have to go into some dispensationalism here.
Dispensationalism alert.
Yeah. Um, when you look at what age we're living in, the age of grace, we have to see how Christ teaches us through Paul, since Paul is the apostle to the Gentiles, to the people in the age of grace. And very plainly, he just says a man who doesn't work doesn't eat. Like, he doesn't eat and you die, and like your life. like to operate I don't want to say successful life, but like to operate in your life, you need to work, whether it's like toiling over your own garden and doing everything yourself, which is hard to do in this day and age. I mean, it's hard to self maintain and self provide. Um, so usually, like a job to make money is how you do it, and I mean that's how we do it. That's I want we want to support our family, support ourselves. So we have a good position in life that we can help others and influence others as well. So just like uh, that part of the day in life, I got to go to work. And then, obviously when you're in work, you don't want to have, again, that bad attitude or a way of life or even just your cadence to be not profitable or not helpful in any situation. So something along those lines to when we're at a earthly job that it's not like I mean, a lot of jobs aren't that spiritual feeling. So like, like, oh man, I hate having to do this, but
Yeah.
in a way, it is. It does help out from a Christian's point of view. It is a spiritual job, either way, and you have coworkers and sometimes customers to influence and help out. So
From I think from a Buddhist perspective, and regardless of tradition, I think most Buddhists would say like, you know, a really tough customer is a great teacher. But yeah, Dave, like going to work, what you do with your life. There's actually one of the 8 aspects of the Eightfold Path is skillful or right livelihood, and the Buddha, offered this kind of instruction on what would be a beneficial livelihood, and it's basically comes down to non-harming. So he said, what wouldn't be skillful right livelihood? Selling poisons, selling weapons, selling people, like killing beings, like those, like would just like right out the gate not be the best for practicing the Dhamma. But so, and a lot of people are like, oh, Buddhists, got to be a monk, got to renounce everything, and like that is one path that the Buddha, the Buddha created the monastic sangha for a reason, and because it offers an extraordinary rich opportunity to just live the teachings of the Buddha. But he also broke down the followers of the Dhamma into, he called it the fourfold assembly. So you have male and female monastics, and you have male and female lay followers. So the lay followers have a place in the Buddhist practice as well, and you can implement the teachings in your life. You could help support the monastic sangha, and learn from the monastic sangha, and still be I mean, when you look at the suttas, there are like a lot of people say, oh, if you want to become enlightened, you have to be a monk. But in the original suttas, there are stream enterers, people who have entered the inevitable path to enlightenment as householders, as lay people. And it's either way, whatever you approach like a Buddhist practice, you can make a right livelihood through many different avenues.
I see one of our viewers said, I think it's Kay, if I can
Kai.
see that right, Kai.
Hi, Kai.
Hey, yeah, caring for others is right livelihood. I mean, you can't go wrong with that. I mean,
Yeah.
if you're just caring for yourself, that's a selfish livelihood. So, I, going off of what you said, it's kind of a same thing, in especially like Baptist circles. Like, not everyone can be the preacher or a missionary, and there's going to be some of those people that are just the parishioners, or like the common folk that support the the ones that can do it full time. And for that, we do have to work jobs, and they'll they'll always say like you might have to work a worldly job or an earthly job to be able to serve in a spiritual capacity. Because like if I'm struggling to make ends meet, and if I'm just like mooching off of other people, like how am I going to serve in a spiritual aspect to others if I can't even help myself at first? So um, it's just it would be ideal if everyone could just be a full-time preacher, but that's impossible. It just doesn't compute. Or a missionary, like someone has to support the missionaries.
I mean, if everyone was like a missionary or a preacher, that would defeat the idea of a preacher or a missionary.
Exactly. I mean, at that
It's like,
point,
yep, job, mission accomplished.
at that point, we would expect Jesus to be on the earth if everyone was in that. I mean, if you look into it, not everyone would be at that point anyway. So, even when Jesus is on the earth, so it's a it's a in any society there is a economy of different pieces of the puzzle. So, just like in the body of Christ, not everyone can be the hand, or we won't have a foot to stand on. Um, Not everyone can be an eye, or we'll just be way too many eyes and be creepy. I mean, it's every person has a job to do. Spiritually speaking, in the body of Christ, we have like the prayer warriors. We have even like the people that clean the churches, or the people that write cards to people that are sick, or the missionaries and the obvious ones like the preachers and stuff. But even within the capacity of our daily lives, we all have a part to play too. So I'm not going to take that for granted. Like, oh yeah, okay, I just work this job, and I'm still ministering to my family. I'm still ministering to myself and other people around me. So
Yeah, there's a story. I can't remember if it comes out of the suttas or comes out of the Zen tradition, but there's a story of a monk who was illiterate, and so he couldn't study, he couldn't read, he couldn't, subsequently teach uh, the teachings, and the other monks kind of, poked fun at him and like, oh, we're better than you because we can read and everything, and their teacher, you know, took him aside one day and it's like, you can sweep, your dharma will be sweeping. And the story goes that as he was sweeping with the stroke of one of the broom, he gained enlightenment. And so it's kind of like, no matter what part you play, like not everyone can be monks, because then, you know, logistically, then the monastic sangha wouldn't be supported by the lay people, and it's a symbiotic relationship in that aspect. So that would just kind of fall apart.
yeah, exactly. Yep. Yeah, I always look back, and I've mentioned this on the show before. There's like a meme, if you will, of like this guy pulling he's like a sheep or a goat out of a flood, and another guy's like helping him by like holding his hand, and like the sheep are like the people that this missionary's ministering to, and the person like helping the guy stand up is the local church. So like the church supports the missionary to support the world basically, and like without one or the other, it's just kind of like a pointless, impossible task. So not everyone in a congregation has to go out to a foreign country to be a missionary, because then there won't be a congregation anywhere. And say, oh no, there's that congregation. I got to go be a missionary now. No, because that's the job of the missionaries, to make a congregation somewhere else. So yeah, symbiotic relationships and everything. So that's what we immerse ourselves in the world as, from a day-to-day point of perspective, because we're talking about a day in the life.
Yeah, right.
Day in the life.
Day in the life.
I mean, from a big picture, that's really the practice. That's really the practice of a Christian, of a general Baptist, if you will, is having that mindset, pray without ceasing. We obviously like want to get immersed in the Word as well, because that's how that two-way communication between God and man works, is prayer and the Word. And so there's always that responsibility as well, as is in reading and studying the Bible. And also like in a weekly aspect, our church, personally, my church has like a Sunday morning and evening service, and then a midweek service to like give us a break from the world, and like kind of take refuge in the church house while we're in middle. It's like just take a break and take a time to relax and refresh yourself. So we're not doing it alone. And they have like, there's lots of independent Bible studies and stuff too that people will hold to supplement as well.
That taking a break from the world, it's like, that's kind of what a daily meditation practice is also for. Because you're like setting time aside so that you're not constantly always having to engage in things in the world, and also kind of not really weekly, but every 2 weeks, once every month maybe. There's also the kind of optional practice of the Apostate, which is like gives you an opportunity to just give yourself a day to kind of step back from the world and refocus and recharge your practice, and yeah, take gives you a refuge. We have the idea of taking refuge in Buddhism, kind of we're making an effort to rely on the Dhamma, and the Buddha, of course, because he taught the Dhamma. So we're making an effort to kind of rely on that, to, instead of trying to take refuge in the world, because from a Buddhist perspective, that like everything, conditioned phenomena of the world is unreliable, is dukkha. So it's like, okay, I'm tired of trying to take refuge in things that just keep changing and things that are unreliable. So I'm gonna lean into and take refuge into these teachings of compassion and renunciation. And I feel like I was gonna go somewhere with that, but that's kind of a week or a month in the life of.
Yeah, all of this can translate to a lifetime of a life in the life of someone.
Yeah.
A lifetime in the life of.
And in Buddhism, it's, every moment is an opportunity to practice, and that's what Buddhism as a whole is a practice. And a friend of mine who is going to teach a class on the Dhammapada in November, he I love what he says about the Dhammapada, because it's a book of verses in Buddhism, and I don't think people, especially in the West, are like familiar with the concept of approaching a text not as like, you know, as a book that preaches to you about what you believe, like to believe, like, hey, believe this, believe that. But he's like, it's not a book about what to believe, it's a book about what to do. And because that's what Buddhism is. It's okay, what do I do to be more at peace, to help end this suffering of day-to-day life, and and so it's like, and this might be kind of a weird way to, and maybe very inaccurate way to word it, but it's like, it's almost like advice. It's it's saying like, hey, instead of relying on uh sense pleasures, like trying to find the new exciting thing to engage in and entertain yourself, like, why not try renunciation? Why not try taking a break from all these sense engagements? Like, what happens if you just take a step back from that and seclude yourself from that approach to life? And
Boredom.
boredom is could be said to be you know boredom is usually seen as a sign of aversion, which is the opposite side of desire in Buddhism.
Mm.
Um, but yeah, if you see boredom, it's like, that is interesting. I wonder what that's about. And you can go into that more and see why you're bored,
It
and
doesn't sound boring at all.
I know, right? But boredom all of a sudden becomes extraordinarily interesting and very eye-opening.
I think people are scared to be bored.
Yeah.
They're afraid to find out who they really are.
Yeah.
And like they depend on outside influences to define them. And really, like, one thing it's kind of cliche to say in a Christian realm, but like, it's good to be in the world but not of the world. And they give an analogy of a boat in the water. It's good for the boat to be in the water but not the water to be in the boat. Like, so like, as a Christian, like, we can be in the world but don't let it influence you to the point where you sink. Don't take the world in. Be in it though.
You shouldn't let the world control how you act.
Exactly.
How you react to it.
Yeah.
And
Exactly.
Buddhism shares a very, very similar sentiment, in that sense of, we might not use the verbiage of be in the world but not of the world, but it's really, really close to that sentiment. It's the kind of non-attachment. It's like being surrounded by I think Thich Nhat Hanh used to say that if there's one calm person in the boat won't sink. Because that presence, like, okay, I'm this panicked boat, but I'm not going to let that panic get to me. I'm going to sit here in the boat, but not of the boat.
Yeah, that reminds me of, I don't know how relevant it is, but like when Jesus was in the boat with his disciples and they're in a storm and he was just like sleeping in the boat, and they're all like, what in the world are we gonna do? And he's like, well, guys, don't you know who I am? And like, he's just like, they wake him up because they're so scared. And he's the one calm one in the boat. Like, dude, I got this.
Yeah.
They didn't have to worry after that. That's yeah. I don't know how related that was, but it reminded me of that.
That's somewhat related.
So, anything else like that comes to mind, or that you wanted to address, like as a day in the life of, like, any burning questions for me versus just what you think you already know?
Is there like of any kind of like in Buddhism we have formal sitting practices that you can wake up in the morning, make set time aside to sit and meditate, and then also times in the evening, times in the afternoon, like whenever you can. Pretty much.
Yeah, that's usually something that's encouraged, to take time to read, and a lot of people do, like, my Bible and coffee, and you see it on Facebook all the time. Like, yeah, time for Bible and coffee, and like they drink their coffee and read the Bible. Some people will use time like driving to work to like play the audio Bible, or just like turn off everything and just pray, not the car because they're still driving, but like pray, like take time to pray. Um, any given moment, some people have their practice and pray or read. Um, my life's, I mean, I'm kind of, I don't want to admit it, but it's like chaotic right now. Some people will have like a prayer closet where they like kind of sanctify that area, like set that area apart just for prayer and meditation on the word. So it's very individualized, very, there's no specific thing you have to do or any specific way to do it. A lot of people will, the prayer without ceasing thing is, I don't think it's emphasized enough in Christian circles, because a lot of people will like, oh, we'll pray for dinner, and like that's one of the most normal like everyday thing for us is like as a family we'll pray before we eat dinner because that's the one time we're all together. So we do formalize, quote unquote, that, and like we teach our kids how to do it, and like, hey, if there's anything you want to be thankful for or pray about, like go for it. And usually they don't have anything specific, but we all take turns, and have our day to pray for that, and then it kind of creates a good atmosphere of like talking to each other at the dinner table about like, ah, you mentioned that, like you mentioned that in your prayer, like we want to talk about it more. Um, but like a lot of people will say getting into a habit of only praying during these times messes up your prayer without ceasing, your unceasing prayer, because you only think, I only have to pray here, but really what Paul says is to always pray. So it's, again, it's more of a mindset, like a continual thing, um, as you're going through your day. So there's, on both ends, it's like no structure or too much structure. It can be too much of a good thing or a bad thing.
Interesting. Prayer closet idea is really interesting. In Buddhism, a lot of people try to have a dedicated room for meditation. So it's kind of like a prayer closet in a way. Some people will probably literally have a meditation closet. And especially in the Theravada circles, they also emphasize making time to read the suttas because there's a lot of them, and it's good stuff. So I usually try to do, like, with my morning meditation, also make time to read a sutta or two if I have the time, and if they're short. Yeah. Any burning questions
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing, like with your daily practice. Like you kind of already alluded to it a lot, like setting that time for meditation and everything. But like, and I know we have spoken about meditation before, so is it like specific words or things said, or is it like kind of more individualized for any given Buddhist?
I mean, there's a lot of different uh, meditation techniques. Um, the most common one, and the one that I most do, is sometimes called Vipassana, or uh, it's a meditation technique that comes out of Satipatthana Sutta, or the mindfulness of breathing discourse, where it's you you watch your breath, and before your first breath is over, your mind is like running away and attaching to some other thought, and the whole practice is just to sit there and bring your attention back to your breath and watch your breath, like be present and aware, like the um like Anapanasati Sutta, the mindfulness with breathing. The Satipatthana Sutta that I mentioned earlier is the four foundations of mindfulness. Anapanasati Sutta goes through these like 17 steps of mindfulness of breathing, and it's very basic instruction, like breathing in short, you know you're breathing in short, breathing out long, you know you're breathing out long. So basically just being fully aware with your breath in that present moment. And when your mind starts straying, you just refocus, and you don't berate yourself. It doesn't really help. Um, but yeah, it's deceptively simple, and it's easy, but it's also extraordinarily difficult.
Hmm.
And some people use mantras. Some people, um, yeah. So there's a lot of a ton of different techniques taught by the Buddha.
Hmm.
Sometimes there's like an objectless mindfulness where you don't have a focus of attention, and I think that kind of translates into some like Tibetan traditions of like Dzogchen, where it's like I can't even remember what they usually call it, like, but it's an expansive, limitless awareness, without a focused object of meditation. But like the four foundations of mindfulness give you ample things to focus on, uh, from your breath to mind states. But many people find it sufficient to just focus on their breath. That usually is what works best for me.
Yeah, I've seen that practice like brought into just like non spiritual like practices of like breathing techniques and everything of like being more mindful and aware. So
Oh yeah,
it's probably pretty effective
I mean,
if you let it be.
one could argue that the whole like mindfulness movement, mindfulness fad, even maybe, like came out of the you know Satipatthana.
Mm.
Uh, I don't want to say tradition, but instructions.
Hmm. I can believe that. So with so I kind of got us to dinner, and then like now, is there any specific like nighttime things that brings to mind, like going from morning to day to
Um,
night?
just the reflection reflections, like the five reflections, or you know, uh, meditation practice. For me, what I find really helps at night at nighttime, bedtime, before I go to bed, is actually a metta practice. And it depends on like the tradition, because some people say, oh, metta naturally comes out of a mindfulness practice, and some people say, I'll make, at least 5 minutes of your sitting practice for metta. Some people focus on metta. Some people go on metta retreats. But I find personally what is useful for me is, just like kind of informal metta practice before bed. Helps kind of shed some of the stress and anxiety, and if I'm still in that go mindset, it kind of helps loosen things, relax things, and sometimes I even feel like it gives me better dreams.
Oh, I would not doubt that with like dreams, and I mean that's really affected by your state of mind and uh, your energy at that time.
Yeah.
And really, like for me, um, I think that like in a nighttime setting, it's always good. Um, it's always a good reflective time, uh, especially as you're coming down to think back at the day and like what the next day has to bring. But it's like a really good time to reflect on that. Think of what you're thankful for, like what went great, what didn't go great that day, and like how you could change it in the next day. And it's always like nighttime is always a great time to like pray. I sometimes I'll do like music at night if I can fit it in, because music has a way of affecting the physical and the mental. So music's always a cool way to end the day. I don't get to do as much, but even playing music too. Um, I used to put myself to sleep playing guitar. That was a long time ago. But yeah, I used to be like before uh, before I became a Christian, before I got saved. I used to be so afraid of the unknown of the night and like where the mind goes and all the creepy stuff of night. But really, like that's one thing that I noticed had an immediate effect on me when I got saved. Was like I was no longer afraid of that for some reason. Like I just had a peace about that. Um, so I fall asleep like I fall asleep so easy. It's not funny. So that's just me. So that's basically in a very broad look at a day in the life of not a Christian specifically or generally, but me, um, in a spiritual sense.
Yeah. I think that wraps up kind of a good summation of what it means to be an everyday Buddhist.
Well, with that, I mean, this day is still young, so we have lots more to look forward to, at least for the day. Um, we will be, again, we will have some really cool stuff coming out soon. You guys are going to love it probably more than any of our episodes or hate it.
Any more than any of our episodes.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. We do plan on getting more episodes out soon. We've just been in a crazy hiatus, so we honestly don't have a timeline for you guys, but we're not gone forever. Again, check us out, Baptist and Buddhist at gmail.com, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. I forgot to mention that
Instagram.
All podcast apps. You can hear our voices and get confused on who's talking.
Who is talking?
Good question. But for that, I think that's going to do it for now. Anything else we should say?
I don't think so.
Because I mean, he didn't come all this way just to talk to you guys. So
Actually, I have to catch my flight now.
Yeah, good luck with
Just
that.
kidding.
Okay, well, I think we're gonna end it there. So hopefully we will talk to you guys soon. See you guys soon. Oh, I can play the closing song, our theme song, if this is tuned. Yeah. Well, I'll give Brian the job to finish us off to end all the streams. So see you guys later.
Bye-bye.